Good morning, everybody.
Yep.
It is Friday at 10:30, and it is therefore
Time for CEO Chat.
CEO Chat. My name is Al Cini.
I'm Joe Osmendi.
And you know what, Joseph? This is so much fun for me. This is our
Yeah.
5th year
Absolutely.
of CEO Chat.
And it gets better every year.
It gets better, and you get younger.
Well, there you go.
Well, maybe not. My eyesight also actually is deteriorating, which may explain that. The most
Beer goggles.
We're really blessed to have today a good friend of mine and somebody that I know. His name is Arnie Amir.
Okay.
Arnie, welcome to the program. It's nice to have you.
Thank you, Al, and thank you for having me.
Well, you are the president of Growth Point Business Consulting, and you've got a specialty in helping organizations grow their businesses. And I know one of the sweet spots for you is in helping business people develop and work relationships, which is something they're often not very good at naturally, if I'm characterizing that correctly.
That is correct, yes.
So talk about that. What is it about relationships that people just don't understand, and how do you help them with that?
Well, I think the best way to answer that question, Al, is to describe how I approach my engagements. My clients are business owners who have launched and grown their business, and even reached a milestone or two. But like any business owner, they still have challenges to overcome and goals that they would like to achieve. We're also working really hard, Al, on the day in and day out things that just have to get done, because that's what keeps their business going from one day to the next. But they're not necessarily taking that step back to look at the things they really need to do to enable their business to grow and reach the goals that they set for themselves. Typically, I take that step back with them, but not before I get to know them as owners, as entrepreneurs, as risk takers. What gets them up in the morning? What keeps them up at night? How they got to where they are, but most importantly, what do they still want to achieve in their business? And I dedicate that time, Al, because I know, as you do, that we do business with people that we like, that we respect, and that we trust. And that's where the relationships come in. And initially, my goal with my clients is to have them believe that I'm as committed to their goals as they are, and that I will enable them to plan, to execute, and achieve the vision that they still have for the growth of their business.
No.
Hey, well, take me through an engagement, Arnie, because that sounds very interesting. If I was going to engage your services, how would I go about it?
So I did not hear that.
Joe was asking, how would we start an engagement with you? What would the choreography be like?
Yes.
Well, I start every engagement with that business owner and their leadership skills. And there are two questions that I ask every business owner that I engage with that helps me understand those leadership skills and how they're applied through the organization. And one is that if I met with each of your employees and asked them what you are trying to achieve in your business, what would they tell me? There are many business owners who cannot answer that question because they've never shared that vision with their employees. And the way I express it to them is, your employees come in the morning and they punch in, they do their work, and they may do it very well. At the end of the day, they punch out and they go home. But my question to that business owner is, isn't it fundamentally better and more beneficial for your business if those employees were more engaged, they were more empowered, they truly understood what you are trying to achieve in your business and the value that they have in helping you achieve that vision? It's really hard, Al, to say no to that scenario. And the irony is that the cost of doing that is virtually, it's little or nothing. But the benefits of doing that and doing it well are in productivity, are in performance, in retention, and the ability to have a workforce that's really pulling in the same business growth direction.
Interesting.
The other question I ask relates to the customers or clients, and that question is, if I talk to each of your top 10 clients and ask them about you, your business, your company, the relationship that they have with you, what would they tell me? Again, there are many business owners who do not engage their clients enough to really understand, what they really believe. And this comes from a very specific experience of mine. I had an engagement with a company that sold their product, the manufacturer that sold their products through a network of distributors. And those distributors accounted for a very large percentage of their business, 75 to 80%. And I was told that the relationships with those distributors was very sound. They had been doing business with the manufacturer for many years, and there was a strong history. But my goal, my responsibility, was to reinvigorate the business in that company and ultimately help position it for sale. And so I felt that I really needed to determine that, to understand those relationships and determine the strength of those relationships myself. So I went out and I met with those distributors individually, the top 6 distributors, individually, face to face, and simply asked a number of questions and then listened. And I learned 3 things that really opened my eyes. One was that the first thing I learned was that our core products worked really well, but technologically we were not as up to date as we should be. The second thing I learned was that our distributors purchased our products and sold them to their customers, the end user. And when that end user had a problem with our system and our distributor needed our help to fix it, we didn't get there fast enough and we didn't resolve the problem quickly enough. Okay. The third thing I learned was probably the most important, the most telling thing that was really important for me to know, is that our distributors really believed that we as a manufacturer made decisions that were right for us, that benefited us relative to product development and business strategy, but we never sought input from our distributors so that we can make decisions that would benefit them as well. And so I took that information back, made some changes in how we approached how we worked with our distributors, but I also felt we needed to take an extra step. And that extra step was creating an advisory board of key distributors, our top 6 distributors, so that they would have an open forum to discuss their views, to express their concerns, and their priorities relative to their customers, the end user. I wrote a charter for the group to demonstrate how important we believed this was going to be, and described how all this would work. We would meet in our headquarters twice a year. Our meetings would last 2.5 days. Every meeting would have an agenda. Everyone would have a goal to accomplish from one meeting to the next, and we would hold each other accountable. The results were twofold. Our relationships with our distributors were enhanced significantly, and our business benefited. And that's a solution that I can take to many clients in many engagements.
You're speaking our language because we talk to CEOs a lot. Big difference between the effective ones and the ones that are struggling is that the ones that are struggling see that their prospects as line items on a spreadsheet. They see their employees as line items on a balance sheet. But really getting to understand what people actually want, what they need, and what motivates them is a big part of your value proposition. So, Arnie, my question to you is, would you call yourself a marketing consultant and a sales consultant primarily then, or is it a more general, let's say, business consultant?
I am a business consultant by definition. My company is Growth Point Business Consulting. Because the leadership skills of that business owner that I refer to impact everything and everyone in his or her organization and impact their ability to grow. So the end result needs to be business growth and revenue generation. And that is my goal with my clients.
And how large is a customer for you typically? I mean, how large a client do you typically work with?
It can be a startup, but it can also be $5 to $10 million with roughly 50 to 100 employees. But the key is that there's a business owner who has been able to get his or her business to a certain level, is working really, really hard to keep it there, but is not growing to the extent that they would like. Okay. And that's where I come in.
How did you start this business, Arnie?
How did you start it, Arnie?
How did I start?
Yeah.
I took all the experience I've learned in my previous career, which includes 30 plus years of leadership roles, either in the field leading really good sales teams, or being part of a senior management team on the corporate side. I learned the value of really strong leadership and the importance of goals being aligned in an organization, and the value of having a focused marketing and sales strategy. And I took all that experience, all that expertise, and opened my own business.
What I like about your approach, Arnie, is it's focused on, it's certainly, I mean, people use that word focus a lot, but when you really deeply understand what your customers expect of you and what they need from you, and when you deeply understand what motivates your employees, then you reach that growth point that I think you help people reach. And I think that's the value that you add to a client. Now, I want to point out for people watching our program, there's a picture of Maine behind you. I know that's a favorite vacation spot for you. And your office is in North Jersey.
It is.
That's where you live, but you can have clients anywhere, and you do a lot of consulting via Zoom, don't you?
Yes, Zoom has been a great creator, if you will. It's given me the opportunity to meet and get to know business owners who do not live in this area, but I can still provide assistance for.
Great. Well, we need to take a break, but we'll be back after these messages with more of Arnie Amir, the value of relationships and what Arnie brings to the table. So come back after these messages for more CEO Chat.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
We're back.
We're back with RVN Television CEO Chat. My name is Al Cini.
Joe Osmendi, as usual.
And we're talking with business growth expert, Arnie. And Arnie, it's such a pleasure having you on the program because you've got such an unusual approach to things. You mentioned in the first segment of the program that you work with advisory groups and mastermind groups, which means you try to pull in more of the stakeholders than just the business owner. Do I have that right?
Yes, it can be done. It can be done in a number of ways, but the advisory board that I created for that manufacturer enabled that group of distributors, for example, to have an open forum to share their views, their concerns, and an opportunity to impact the decisions we made as a manufacturer. Okay. It's really all about something that you and I both talked about, and that is really understanding what's important to key customers and to people in an advisory board, and creating a group like that enables people to share what's important to them and how to create opportunities to improve their business. I think bringing people together to have that conversation that can be mutually beneficial to each board member, but also, if it is a situation like I described, to the manufacturer that I was engaged with, everyone benefits in that scenario.
Well, I don't think people really understand the value of that. I mean, there are an awful lot of people especially in leadership roles in companies who feel like they're the smartest guy in the room, feel like they already know all the answers. The truth is the people that surround you know an awful lot, and if you're not open to that, including maybe sometimes open to their criticisms, then you'll never you'll never benefit by any of that. And that's something, that's a barrier I think you help break down. How do you do that?
Well, and that's the importance of that is ongoing communication, because, for example, with the advisory board that I created, we met twice a year. The reason we met with that frequency is circumstances change, and it was really important to stay engaged with those key clients, and to be updated on what is important to them and their business, so we can make adjustments in how we work, so that everyone benefits. One result of that, Al, is that you create a much more collaborative and mutually beneficial relationship with those key customers.
And once you tap into that, that's a gold mine of information that
it's
no matter how smart you are, you can't know unless you listen.
That's very true.
Yeah, that's critical. Okay, now you mentioned also in the top of the program that you gave us the example of a manufacturing company that you've worked with. What about service companies? You work with them?
Part of my background includes healthcare, Al, and I've worked as one example is I worked with someone in the healthcare world. The owner happens to be an occupational therapist, and as I got to know her, she had been in business for about 8 years when we first started working together. Was working out of her home in a makeshift office, but really had a strong desire to grow her business and a strong commitment to make that happen. So we worked together, and I really got to know what's important to her as much as, which was probably the most important thing I did. And we worked on setting some goals. And some key steps that will help to actually create opportunities and more patience. And part of that was creating some small actionable steps for her that enable her to make progress day in and day out. And to make a long story short, today she has an office out of her home, has a full patient load, and is doing very well.
You work with any nonprofits?
Joe was asking about not-for-profits, Arnie.
Right.
I can. I haven't worked. That's not been part of my experience so far. But I can work with anyone that really wants to grow the business and is committed to making that happen.
How about family-owned businesses?
Yes, I've worked with family-owned businesses. It's a different challenge, obviously, because there's always one owner. But there are many people who impact the business decisions.
Okay, I want to remind everybody we're talking with Arnie Amir, who is the president of Growth Point Business Consulting. And if you're a startup, if you're a small to medium-sized business with dozens or even hundreds of employees, you're looking to engage with somebody who can help you tap the value of your relationships, not just with your customers, but also with your employees. And probably also with your C-suite, executive suite members. Arnie is the guy you want to call, no question about that. Arnie, I mentioned before the program that I might ask this question. I think we have the time for this. Is there something you can tell us that you've done for a customer of yours that they've thanked you for? And what was that, and what was it about that made you proud of what you do?
Well, it's really that occupational therapist that I just referred to, what she said can be found on my website as a testimonial. It's something I'm very proud of because I not only got to know her very well and what was important to her, but I also got to know. I also helped her really take advantage of some unique aspects of her business. There's a type of therapy that she practices that is very unique, but she wasn't promoting it to the extent that she could have And the actionable steps that I talked to her about, that we worked on together, helped her become more attractive to potential clients, and positioned her much more positively with targeted customers. And so much of her patient load right now is a mix of patients that speak to the variety of her therapies, and it's really enabled her to grow her business.
Wow. Well, and it's as much about psychology as it is about business consulting, and I think that's what an awful lot of business owners overlook when they're looking for a consultant. And you really want somebody who understands the dynamics of the mind and how people work and how people interact. And I think that's a sweet spot for you, Arnie. And you also mentioned on your LinkedIn profile that you work with TAB. Maybe you can spend a minute about on TAB and what you do with that.
I'm happy to. TAB is it's the alternative board. And it's a peer advisory group, another example of one, of business owners who meet monthly. And the purpose is to present their challenges to each other, but then enable each other to overcome those challenges and achieve their business objectives. The board groups generally are comprised of 6 to 8 members. And there really is a spirit of collaboration and commitment to each other with each meeting. I provide individual coaching in between meetings and to help members make progress toward their goals. And I facilitate the board meetings to make sure that everyone has an equal opportunity to present their challenges, but also share potential solutions to those challenges. And ensure that everyone benefits mutually.
What are some of the challenges that businesses face, Arnie, coming out of this pandemic, where a lot of things were being Zoomed, et cetera, and now they might be going back to work? So what are some of the challenges you see?
Could you hear that, Arnie? Joe was asking about the recovering. There are a lot of companies out there recovering from the pandemic.
Right.
And first order of business, I would think, would be developing relationships, building relationships. Does that sound like something you could do?
Very much so. I think one thing that I realized during the pandemic was that there was a level of frustration with many clients, with many business owners, because of things they simply could not control. And I made a very conscious decision in my business, and I encourage my clients to do the same, is to focus on what they can still control and what they can still do now during the pandemic. That enabled them to take some steps that were measurable and enabled them to make progress day in and day out, and kept their momentum going, and enabled them to not just get through the pandemic, but also keep it growing beyond it. And at this point, this is where we start to expand those steps and reach further out and to create opportunities for growth, to create actionable steps to create more opportunities and incremental revenue.
That's great. Arnie, we're at that part of our program where you get to tell everybody how they can reach you so you can help them recover from COVID, develop relationships with their employees and with their customers. So Arnie Amir, tell us all how we can reach you.
You can reach me through email at arnie@growthpointbc.com. My website is growthpointbusinessconsulting.com or growthpointbc.com. I can also be reached on my cell phone at 973-747-7387. And I would welcome the opportunity to talk to anyone who would like to discuss their challenges but are committed to overcoming those challenges and growing their business.
Well, that's Arnie Amir, president of Growth Point Business Consulting. It was great having you on the program today for CEO Chat. And thanks all of you for tuning in and listening to this great conversation.
Great.
We'll be back again next week with another CEO Chat. In the meantime, stay healthy, stay happy, have a great weekend.
Yeah.
And we'll see you again next week. Thank you.